Okay, now the recording began, so people who are not here will be able to watch a replay of the video, and if you miss different parts, you'll be able to listen to the recording. I will say that after the class, I'm going to send an email where you're going to get access to the PowerPoint that we're going to share. So you'll have that, and the videos that are in this week's PowerPoint, you'll also get with other things you can read on this topic. So I want to welcome everyone. For the next 6 weeks, we're going to be learning together all about Jewish style meditation. So I just want to be upfront right away that we all understand what this meditation is about. Meditation from Sinai is a little different, perhaps, the way we understand traditionally of what meditation is. Meditation, the way we know it today, we can imagine if you had to picture in your face, if you had to imagine in your head a picture of someone meditating, you would probably think of someone sitting on top of a mountain with their legs crossed, their hands in a motion where they're taking deep breaths and thinking of some special thoughts. The Torah, in its brilliance, has always taught us that the main thing is always action. So doing the mitzvah, doing the good deed, doing the act is always the most important thing. Nevertheless, the Torah also teaches us how to have a relationship with God, and it's through the mitzvahs that we do, through the good deeds that we do with other people. That's how we connect with God and connect to other people. So through this, we're going to understand also how we can meditate to become better human beings. So it's almost like a benefit of studying Torah where you get to learn different concepts of meditation. I gotta move this screen that's in my way. Sorry. Okay. Just trying to figure out the things on the screen. So when did meditation start in Judaism? So this is actually a very interesting topic. If we would stop and wonder, where did this whole concept of meditation begin? So truthfully, if we go way back when, to our forefathers, when they were still in Canaan, before they even descended to Egypt, we'll hear stories of them meditating. Our patriarchs were known as shepherds. The reason why they were shepherds, if you look in your textbooks and text number 1, Rebbe Eliyahu HaKohen writes from the Medrash, Tam ha'avis shahayu roim, the patriarchs chose to be shepherds so that they could be alone in the wilderness where the air is clean and pure, and they would be far from other people for the sake of secluding themselves in divine meditation. So the concept of why our forefathers chose this industry to be in, instead of the shmata business or the diamond district, they chose to be shepherds so they can be out in the fields where they can meditate freely, have no distractions of local politics, of local people. They don't have to deal with the marketplace. They were out there in the nature. And we know that the best place to meditate on the greatness of God is in nature, where you see the hand of God literally running the entire planet. When we live in a world of technology, we think ourselves and we buy stocks in the technology that we believe in, and we don't always see the hand of God. But in nature, it's very clear that everything there is in the hands of God. The second place where we see meditation in Judaism is prayer. Now, if you look in your student book on page number 4, you'll see figure 1.1, and you'll see there a chart where it talks about tefillah as prayer. Where you see how clearly the verses indicate that prayer creates our relationship with God. If you look at the chart, if you read from the left side, the verse in Samuel says, if one commits a crime against another, he will be judged by a judge. What does it mean he will be judged by a judge? The explanation is, an introspective exercise of self-judgment, that I will be judging myself. I will judge my own actions. I will judge my actions based on my behavior. Right? And we bring another verse, another Mishnah that's kind of similar. One who glues earthenware vessels is the concept of a contemplative practice of cementing a relationship with the divine. So the concept of praying, the concept of introspection, where we stop and we think about our actions, we think about the way we practice, the way we behave ourselves. This, in essence, is a form of meditation. Maybe it's a different type of meditation, but it's a form of meditation. As we go through the course and we see the Jewish style of meditation, you'll always see how it pulls, how we can be a better human being. It's not just meditation to make ourselves feel a little disconnected from the day-to-day grind, but rather it's a way for us to connect to something higher, right? So it's not just for no purpose, but actually for a greater purpose. And you'll see how this comes along. Text number 2. I'm going to see if anyone wants to read here. Text number 2 is a Mishnah. Jonathan, you have the book with you?
Yes.
Okay, so read first the Mishnah.
All the way on the right, the first authoritative work, that or the other? By Enamdim.
We must approach.
Enamdim lit palel elam mitoch koved rosh.
Here we go.
Vasidim have we showed him how you show him sha'a achat mitpalim kadesh yichavnu et libam lamakom. We must approach prayer with reverence. The early pious sages would pause in thought for 1 hour so that they could focus their hearts on God and only then pray.
So if you can imagine that we're talking about the people in times of the Mishnah, where they would prepare themselves with plenty of time in advance of their davening, and doesn't say if this was Shachris, Mincha, Amar. So this could be both or all three. Could be 3 times a day. They would prepare themselves for an hour in meditation, preparing themselves before they would daven. So we see 2 things from this Mishnah here. Number 1, that meditation has been around in Judaism for many, many years. It has never been commercialized, but it's been around. The second thing we see here is that the meditation wasn't to meditate as an end goal, but the meditation was there to get them to something more important. In this case, it was to get them to a place where they felt fit to daven. What did they meditate on? There's many different commentaries that describe what they meditated on. You know, most of them describe that they would meditate based on thinking of how great God is and how little they are, and how this great God that is so enormous cares about what one little individual sitting in a corner is going to think or do or say to someone else. And when we stop and meditate on this concept that God really cares what I say or what I do, you wonder, wow, this is something much greater, obviously much greater than ourselves. And this kind of gets us to a place where we feel, okay, now I feel like I'm prepared to actually pray to God in a real way. So this I bring up just to show that the concept of prayer has been here for many, many generations, way before it became popular to be involved in meditation. Next, I want to note that there are different types of meditation. There's actually parts of meditation that doesn't go along the Jewish way of thinking. And then there's other parts of meditation that we do follow along. So I'm going to follow along on the screen here. So we have 3 categories of meditation. The first is what we call foreign, because it's foreign to Judaism. This is a type of idolatry, you may call, where essentially it's worshiping of something, of someone, or of an object, which is obviously against Torah. The next part is the more neutral part of meditation, which is very, very common amongst American people, where we meditate just to have time for ourselves, just to have breathing exercise, just to reduce some stress, to let out some anxiety. We just need to meditate a little bit on, everyone different. Some meditate on things that are happening, blessings that they have, will meditate on the greatness of the world, meditate on different concepts, but it's a very neutral thing. And the only purpose of this meditation is for a person to feel calm. This is an important type of meditation. The third type is organically Jewish. Organically Jewish means that it's meditation that is practiced throughout the generations amongst Jewish people. And the meditation is there to enhance our life, to make our life better and our relationship with God better. The next 6 weeks, the meditation that we're going to be discussing is the organically Jewish meditation. That's what we're here for. We're Jews, learning how can we meditate as Jews, right? We don't want to learn how to meditate as other people. We want to learn how can I be the best version of myself. So that being said, we're going to jump into understanding different types of meditation that there is in Judaism, okay? Kabbalah generally talks about 3 different types of meditation. The concept of this meditation is the language is used very often interchangeable, so we're not going to get stuck on what each one is specific because it's kind of hard to differentiate one between the other. But one is what we call in Hebrew hispaidudus. Hispaidudus means seclusion. You may have heard stories where people would go out in the forest and seclude themselves and they would just be in deep thought, right? That's one concept, transcendent meditation. The second is hisbainos, which is contemplation, where a person they could sit at their desk, they could sit in their shul, they could lay in their bed and just contemplate on an idea, right? So a big thinker would just contemplate on something. It's the highs, the lows, the ups and downs, the details of it, and get very, very much into it. The third is most common, known as kavana, which is when a person focuses on something. He's very mindful. He has the right intentions of what he's doing. Often when we do a mitzvah, we're supposed to have kavana. We're supposed to focus on what's this mitzvah that we're doing. When we're lighting Shabbat candles, we're bringing peace into the home. We're fulfilling a commandment of God. We're allowing the Shabbos to enter into our home, the peace of Shabbos, the light of Shabbos, the joy of Shabbos, right? When we focus on this mitzvah, it starts to make this mitzvah not just a robotic thing that we're doing, but actually it's an entire experience. The more we are mindful of the things we're doing, the actions we're doing, whether it's a mitzvah between you and God, or it's just something you're doing between your neighbor, when you're mindful, that is a form of meditation. That is the most common form of meditation that we do sometimes subconsciously. So these are 3 general topics that we're going to be exploring throughout the next 6 weeks. Just to give a general outline of what we're going to be discussing in the next 6 weeks. The first class, this one, is about how a person can control their mind. The next one is how we can control ourselves through our spiritual things that we're going to do, spiritual deeds. The third class is how we can master ourselves with living in the moment. Enjoy the moment right now. There was pressure. Someone said something hurtful to me yesterday. Tomorrow, I'm going on a big trip. Russia is invading Ukraine. We're very nervous, but let's live in the moment. Right now, it's peaceful. How can we master and live in the moment? Class number 4, we're going to be talking about how we can actually bring this meditation into our day-to-day grind. Life is very busy. These are great concepts to have in our pocket, but how can I actually implement this into my life? In the 6th class, we're going to be talking about 5th class. of how we can bring God into our life, bring the divine presence into our life. And then the sixth class, we're going to be talking finally about how we can learn from our relationship between ourselves and God, and just like we spoke about before, focusing on doing a mitzvah, using the right kavanah, having the right mindfulness when we're doing it, and then that creates those feelings and emotions. How can we do that also just with living our regular life? In other words, putting God aside and the commandments aside, but how we can do it in our real day-to-day life, where we go to the grocery store, we're going to work, interacting with people. How can we bring these powerful tools into our real life? So this is the general concept of what we're going to be talking about. To start off this class, we're going to be talking about something which I think we can all relate to. I think almost every human being living in this world today, the world of technology, we don't live in the shtetl anymore. I mean, living in the shtetl, you hear a story where, the husband went out on a business trip, came back 4 months later, and they were just like waiting around for months for him to come back from a business trip. Today, if you're 30 seconds after the expected time, you have text messages and phone calls. Where are you? Are you okay? Then we're going to send the police to find you. Everyone's nervous, right? What happened to us? We became much more anxious, nervous, worried, concerned. We don't know what it is, but there's a lot of stuff going on. So the question is, what could we do to harness this and to change the way we react to stuff? So as usual, we like to turn to Kabbalah. Kabbalah gives us the underlining fundamental parts of the way the world is structured and the way our bodies are constructed. God created our bodies in the image of God, so our bodies kind of reflect the way the world was created, as we'll see in a few moments. So what we're going to be going through in the next half hour is understanding that the entire, all of our reactions are based on how we educate ourselves. So if we educate ourselves, we will be less fearful, less anxious, and less worried. Let's jump right into this just so we can see exactly what we're dealing with. So on page number 7, there's an exercise that we're going to execute. The exercise says that we should record a negative experience that you had in the past month. So you could think of something negative that happened. If it was a fear, stocks went down, your neighbor shoveled the snow onto your driveway, something negative that happened. And then you want to describe to yourself the personal impact that resulted from this negative feeling that you experienced. So someone did something that you don't like, or in the world of politics, the world of Corona, whatever it is, something negative. And automatically you'll see that what happened was you started feeling, your heart started pounding a little bit. You started feeling a little bit anxious, short breath, nervous. There was an emotional feeling started to come. What is that feeling that we start getting when we think about this negative experience that we had? Okay? It's crazy, but that's the way our bodies work. So we're going to learn today how every one of us can be in full control. We can be in control of our reactions to these feelings that we're talking about. Okay, so bear with me, and I'm going to share all these secrets with you, and it's going to be yours to keep and to teach the next person. So learning how we can control ourselves. The first we like to quote something from the 5 books of Moses. That's the basis of everything Jewish, comes from the Bible, from the Chumash. It says there in Deuteronomy as follows: as you approach the battle. It's very interesting that we're talking about this today, talking about Russia and Ukraine and NATO. We're going to see how this all plays out. But what happens? The Torah tells us you approach battle, the Kohen shall come near and speak to the people. He shall say to them, "Hear Israel, today you are approaching the battle against your enemies. Do not be discouraged. Do not be afraid. Do not be alarmed or terrified because of them." The Kohen, which is the rabbi, the priest, the chaplain in the army, he goes to the soldiers before they go out to fight and he says, do not be afraid at all. Don't be scared because of them. Don't be concerned. Don't get anxious. We know you're going to war, but you got to go with a positive thought. What is this verse teaching us? This verse is teaching us that the way we approach war, the way we approach something is the way its outcome is going to be. If we approach it with fear, chances are we won't win. If we come with this strength, or with a place of strength, much more likely we're going to be able to win. What does Kabbalah tell us about this concept? So Kabbalah teaches us a lot about our consciousness and how a person has to be very conscious of what's going on. Now, there are two types of consciousness. There's conscious and subconscious. A lot of things that go on in our life are subconsciously going on without us actually realizing, or maybe we realize it, but we're not active. We're just allowing our thoughts to wander, but we haven't actually planned to think about that concept. Let me bring up a chart, on a little Kabbalistic chart, to help us understand what we're going to be talking about. So you see on the screen here, we have the top three: Chachma, Bina, and Da'at. Chachma means wisdom, Bina is knowledge, and Da'at is understanding. Then we have Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. This is the chart of the 10 utterances. This is the chart of the 10 faculties that God created the world with, that God conducts the world with. And these are the 10 faculties that each one of us have within our soul. To clarify, the top three, Chachma, Bina, and Da'at, are intellect. And the next 7 are emotions. The reason why we're discussing this is because it's important for us to understand that God gave us these tools. And if we use these tools, then we're able to be much more successful human beings. Our Chachma, Bina, Das, our intellect, these faculties of our intellect influence our emotions. So the first thing Kabbalah tells us about this is understand that where do your emotions come from? Where do your feelings come from? All of our feelings come from our intellect. When we like someone or something, it's because that's how we taught ourselves. We educated ourselves to like that person or to like that object, food, traveling, whatever it is. But it's the emotion grew on us based on our intellect. Okay, we'll understand. We're going to talk about this in a few minutes in more length. But first, we want to be clear. The concept, if you see the chart, the flow of the chart is from right to left to the center and down. The concept here is that everything flows in one direction. It goes through the mind into the emotions. Why do we say this is a very important part of understanding the flow? Because once we understand that our intellect, our mind, our understanding, our cognitive influences the way we behave, influences the way we feel about something, then it becomes much more easier for us to actually control our feelings and our emotions. We can control our anxiety knowing that this emotion, this feeling came from my head, came from up there. If I can change what I'm thinking, I can change the way I feel. Okay, so let's look into our student page on page number 11 for text number 4. Marilyn, you have it there? You want to read for us? Sorry, you're on mute. You're on mute. There you go.
Oh, I said I'm not going to read the Hebrew.
No, you can read the English.
Okay. The human soul is divided into two categories: intellects and emotion, intelligence and emotions. The intellectual faculties, namely Chokmah, wisdom, Bina, understanding, and Dot, knowledge, are referred to as the mothers and the source of the emotions. For the emotions are the offspring of the intelligence.
Very good, thank you. So it's the mother and the children. The intellect is the mother and it births these emotions. Okay, and the better we understand this, the better we'll be able to deal with our own feelings. The next important part that you have to learn with the Kabbalah structure of the way our bodies function is that we have three soul interfaces. There are three methods that these feelings can express themselves. They can express themselves through thinking, through thought, through speaking, communicating words, and through doing stuff, actions. That's the way we express ourselves. This is important because the better we understand, the better we understand how this functions, the better we'll understand our own feelings. So we all have smartphones, and on our smartphones, there are many different applications. When you're not using an application on your phone, the application is still there. It's on the phone, but you haven't activated it. So it's similar to this concept where we have these 10 faculties within our body: chesed, gvura, kindness, severity, humility, judgment. We have all of these. In order for us to open up that application of a certain feeling, of a certain emotion, we have to use one of these three interfaces of either speaking, doing something, or thinking about it. Most commonly, we use our thoughts. And as we think about something, either we get heated up for the positive or for the negative, right? Because we're thinking about what's going on in our mind, and it's creating a feeling and an emotion into our heart. And we're bringing either the kindness out or the opposite. So this is the concept, the way this works. Generally, the Kabbalah uses this term called moach shalt al halev, where the mind can control the heart. Even though a person is very worried or concerned about something, we can use our mind, our intellect, to control that. And we do that through changing what we're thinking. So say I'm feeling right now very worried about one of my children, whatever they're up to is very worrisome to me and it's making me very anxious and I can't focus on anything else. Kabbalah will say, yes, we recognize your feeling, but if you can change your mind of thinking about something else, then you'll start feeling happy. So we're not saying that your feeling is not valid. It's a valid feeling, but now is not the time and place for it. Now it's actually, it's making me, what's the word? Anxious, yeah. And I can't do anything else. I can't be productive because I'm busy worried about something I shouldn't be worried about right now. So we have to have a good thought to think about in order to change the bad thought out to the good thought. Once we start thinking about the good thought, oh, this last trip we did was really nice. We had a little vacation, we had a break, or we went to Simcha, we celebrated with friends, we had a good time, and you start feeling all of a sudden calmer and happier, right? So that's the concept where the mind can control the heart. I want to play a meditative video with Rabbi Leibel Wolf, who discusses this concept of how we can meditate and use these thoughts of moach shalt al halev, of controlling our heart in a very real way. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Can you hear? If you can't hear, let me know. Can't hear?
Not working.
Not working. I can't hear it.
Now can you hear?
Produces an emotion.
There we go.
Okay. There we go.
Thoughts produce feelings. Therefore, even a microsecond of thought in any situation produces an emotion. If we have negative emotions, we can simply displace them by replacing them with a new thought. Not a difficult process, and let me share with you a meditation to try to carry out that particular function. So gently close your eyes and just become aware of the flow of your thoughts. What thoughts are flowing through onto the screen of your consciousness? And as you become aware of the thought, see if you can identify a feeling that arises as a consequence of that thought. I would like you to take yourself back to a moment, to a time when you might have been embarrassed, a situation of personal embarrassment. Try to locate that particular incident, refreshing it in your mind. Note all the points that cause the embarrassment. Become aware of the people who are present. And become acutely aware of your feelings of embarrassment at that time. And now, let's switch that thought. I want you to think back to a moment when you were supremely happy, ecstatic, somewhere in your life where you felt absolute joy. Recall that moment. Where were you? Who was there? Can you recall the voices, the colors, the background sounds? And now consider, where did that image of embarrassment of a few moments ago disappear? The feelings went away because new thoughts were brought into the consciousness of your mind. Let's try that again. Now think back to a time where you hurt yourself physically, maybe injured yourself, sprained an ankle. Take yourself back there and feel the pain. Simulate it. Recognize how you felt. Even complex feelings beyond the pain. Consequences. And now, turn your mind to a birthday party in your honor that you may have experienced as a child, as an adult. What is going on at the party? Who is there? Singing. Maybe a cake. Maybe candles. How do you feel? That same happiness has been recreated. What happened to that feeling of hurt and pain of a few moments ago when you hurt yourself back then? You changed your thoughts, and therefore your feeling is changed. Let's learn an important lesson. Moach shalit al halev. The mind determines the outcomes of the emotions. Change your mind, and you change your feelings. When feeling down, depressed, change your thoughts. And in so doing, your whole emotional makeup transforms in the same moment.
So Professor Label-Wolf definitely makes it sound easy to do, but we just did it. We just did it. And this is something that we can all do. We can do this on our own. We could do this when we're sitting on a park bench. We could do it when we're home. We could do it wherever we are. That's the fascinating thing about this. Now let's go into a little bit more depth of this. The process of feeling, like we spoke earlier, that there's the cognitive part where first it's in our minds, and then it comes out through our feelings, and then we actually go and express it. So the first part is understanding. That's the intellectual part. The second is the garment, how we're going to actually express this, how we're going to do something about it. And then there's the expression itself, which in our case is the feeling. In the pictures, it's the concept is that we understand there's water and we're thirsty, but there's a process that needs to go through. First, we need to get it to our kitchen sink, and then we still need a glass to actually put it into so we can hold it and drink it and use it. If the water in the cup doesn't taste good, then we have to go back to the source, change the source, let it get water that's not salty water or not sweet water, and then we'll start to enjoy the water. That's the outcome, the feeling. And this is the concept. In this concept, there are more easier ways and more difficult. Again, back to our thinking. Our mind can wander on its own, or we can consciously control our mind. So there's two different types that we're going to be dealing with. Obviously, the easier one is when we realize that when we realize that we're nervous or we're anxious about something specific. Then we have to go and consciously change what we're thinking about, understanding that why am I feeling this way? Oh, because I'm busy thinking about this. Of course, it always scares me every time I think about it. Let me change what I'm thinking about to something positive. That's the easier way. The subconscious way, where our thoughts are just flowing through our mind, we can't control it, is a much more difficult way of stopping it, because it comes in, our thoughts don't ask permission for us to think about it, right? It doesn't come and say, hey, I want to start thinking about, is the world coming to an end, or global warming, the things that we're worried about, we don't know the answers to. It doesn't ask us. Our minds just flow into our head, and we have to sort of take control over the thoughts. So let's look into our text and see what the Alter Rebbe says about this. So we're at text number 5. Alicia, do you want to read with us?
I have a bit of a sore throat, so that isn't good right now.
Take
Okay.
over.
Michael, you read double. Student page 13, text number 5.
Thank you,
are in
Michael.
control.
Okay. Being aware of the process that produced our negative feelings permits us to identify methods of taming them. Our simplest method is to pull out the rug from underneath these feelings by shifting our thoughts to something positive. Firstly, depriving our intellectual attention of negativity prevents the swirling mental judgments from developing funnel clouds of negative emotion. Secondly, we can actively insert a positive focus in its place, feeling positivity to our intellectual palates to produce offspring of pleasantly positive emotions.
Okay, and the mind, yeah.
The mind naturally controls the heart. Humans were created from birth with the ability to exercise willpower to control the drives of our hearts so that they will not be expressed in our behavior, speech, or thought. We are able to divert our attention completely from things our hearts crave to something entirely different.
We have the control. It's obviously difficult to control ourselves, but knowing that we have that ability is very empowering. We don't surrender anymore and say, oh my gosh, this is my lot, and I'm just a nervous wreck and I'm filled with anxiety, but rather we know that we can control this in a simple method, right? We don't have to go to our psychiatrist. We don't need to get medicated. We can figure this out on our own. Of course, there are people that have this a little bit more advanced and much more difficult for them to do this on their own, and they reach out for help that they need. But we're talking here about an average person's concerns and worries and anxieties and how one can deal with it. In the early 1820s, there was a rabbi by the name of Reb Shlomo Freidis. Shlomo Freidis' daughter married that Tzemach Tzedek's son, who was the third Chabad Rebbe. So he had a very close connection with him. And he wrote a long letter to the Tzemach Tzedek, who was the Rebbe at the time. And they were a mechutin because their children married each other. And he wrote to him how he's having a very difficult time with his health issues, and it's really worrying him sick, and he doesn't know what to do about this. And he writes this very long letter. We have the response in text number 6 on page 14, which we see what the Tzemach Tzedek responds back to him, which is very interesting. Michael, now you're going to read for yourself. Text 14. Even if we are emotionally afraid.
Continue?
Yeah.
Even if we are emotionally afraid, we are able to divorce our thought, speech, and action from that emotion. The essential thing is not to contemplate or discuss the fear at all, but to do the perfect opposite. Immediately upon letting go of the thought entirely, the fear will dissolve on its own, or at the very least, it will become instantly dormant and not felt in the body. Then, over the course of several days, it will completely dissolve to the point where it will not enter our mind at all. Removal of the thought leads to dispensation of the fear because emotions are entirely reliant upon intellectual focus, for their existence, which requires active thought. Therefore, by removing our thought from the matter, the intellectual power, is withdrawn from the emotion, with the result that the emotion ceases to be activated. It is worth training yourself to remove all negativity, for we must rid ourselves from all fear, including justifiable fear, as I wrote. This is certainly true in your case, where there is nothing to worry about whatsoever, thank God, in terms of your health and financial situation.
Thank you. I mean, you clearly see here that the Tzemach Tzedek is giving him detailed instructions of how he can deal with his fear that is worrying him sick. It just basically replaced that thought with something else. Now, usually we don't welcome distractions, but in this case, distraction is the most important. Now, how is distraction done? What he's saying is you have to replace that thought with something else. If you're just focused on not thinking, then you're going to keep thinking about it because you're so focused on not thinking about it, right? It's like the joke. This fellow asks the rabbi, how do you sleep at night? Do you sleep with your beard tucked out and your blanket under your beard? Or do you sleep with your blanket over your beard? The rabbi says, I don't know. I never thought about it, but I'll tell you tomorrow morning exactly how I sleep. That night, the rabbi goes into bed, and first he puts the blanket over his beard. He can't fall asleep. 10 minutes later, he puts the blanket under his beard. 10 minutes later, he can't fall asleep. And the whole night, he's trying to shift back and forth, figure out how to sleep. He couldn't fall asleep the whole night. In the morning, the fellow asks him, no, Rabbi, so how do you sleep? With your beard under or on top of the blanket? The rabbi says, I don't know. Last night, I couldn't sleep at all. When we're so focused on something, we can't do it. When we're so focused on getting rid of a certain thought out of our mind, because we're so busy doing it, we actually can't do it. Or it takes a lot more strength for us to do it. Rather, we have to have another thought, another das, another concept to replace our mind to cause this distraction. So we have to have like a little toolbox with different ideas. That when we feel something negative is bothering us, something's worrying us, we have to have something good to put into our mind to start thinking about that positive thing. And then by default, the other concept will just go away. And then those feelings will calm down. This is the idea that the Tzemach Tzedek is sharing with him. Now, text number 7, this letter continues. Jonathan, you want to read first text 7? The primary method? All right.
Primary method of removing worrying thoughts from your mind is by redirecting your mind toward other matters. You can replace them with thoughts of necessary material matters that bring you joy, and you can contemplate God's Torah that delights the heart. The latter is best achieved through creating a fixed schedule of daily Torah study, which is particularly effective with a study partner.
Now, we'll take a break for a second. We're talking about the 1820s. The Rebbe was constantly encouraging people, the same idea. If we have a certain amount of Psalms and Tehillim we say every day, we have a portion of Chumash that we read every day, and we learn it. We have a portion of Rambam, of Tanya, that we study daily. This is so important because we're filling our mind with positive things. And then when our mind starts to wander, it's going to wander about the thing we learned this morning, the third thing we read about. If we read about the news that's not such good news, then that's what our mind's going to start wandering off about. If we're filling our mind with good information, and when our mind wanders, we're going to be filled with good stuff. So just on the screen to quickly see what we're speaking about here, the concept of removing worry. How can we get rid of this worrisome? The first rule is we got to have positive thoughts. We start thinking positively, well, we will have positive thoughts. How do we have positive thoughts? We have it through having Torah thoughts. The more we study on a regular basis, the more we'll have good stuff to teach us, good stuff to fill our minds with. This is a very practical topic. The next concept that we're going to discuss is taking this to the next level. Taking this to the next level is understanding that when I have a positive thought, I'm actually going to create a positive outcome. It's kind of sounds a little hocus pocus, but once we understand the structure of how this world functions, the spiritual world functions, we'll understand that when I have a positive thought, when I'm thinking about something happy, I will experience something happy. Just like we started off the class, when the Kohen tells the soldiers not to be afraid to go out to war, you're going to win. That concept of thinking positive creates the reality that the person lives. In Yiddish, the saying goes, "Trach gut, wird sein gut." If you think positive, the outcome, the result, will be a positive result. If we think negatively and we're so worried and so nervous and so anxious, we can't think straight because we're so nervous, guess what? We're creating for ourselves our own problem. We're creating a negative result. Okay, how does this work? So Jonathan, you finish off for us text 8 from the Tzemach Tzedek as he finishes off his letter.
To the contrary,
Yeah.
you should speak and act in a manner that projects positivity, as described above, so that these positive emotions will be established within you. In this way, a spirit of joy and good-heartedness will descend upon you from above. I say this on the basis of a teaching I received from my holy grandfather of blessed memory, who shared an insight, authored by Rav Dov Ber, the Maggid of Mezrich, into the verse, like a person's appearance upon it from above. I'm going to read this verse this way, according to the feelings a person displays down here in this world, like a person's appearance, so is the nature of that which rests upon the person from above. In light of this teaching, my grandfather, Rav Shneur Zalman Uliadi, did not permit me to sing a melancholy tune during the evening prayer. After I completed the prayer, he explained his reasoning for objecting to that and shared the above insight in the name of the Maggid of blessed memory.
Right. So the Tzemach Tzedek concludes with this letter to his Mochutin, saying that not only if you switch your thoughts to positive thoughts, you'll have a positive outcome, but actually you are creating the outcome because you're so worried. That's why you're feeling sick, and that's why you don't see so much success in your life. But if you start singing positive songs and celebrating, you'll start seeing that positive outcome. There's an interesting story where somebody was once had a terrible sickness and had to go through a lot of surgeries, and he wrote to the Rebbe, or the wife actually wrote to the Rebbe, "What can I do as a wife to support my husband as he's going through this?" And she describes how in the house there's like this black cloud over the house, and everyone's very depressed. People are scared to talk about other stuff. No one wants to crack a joke because the mood is so serious and down. And the Rebbe told her that you should invite the whole shul to your house after Shabbos afternoon davenings and make a big kiddush celebrating your husband's health. She thought that this was the most craziest thing that the Rebbe was suggesting for her, but she did it. And she describes that bringing this celebration into the house changed the mood in the house, and it changed the results of how everybody was feeling and the direction that everybody was sort of heading. So the way we act, behave, and think actually creates the outcome that's going to be. And this is what the Tzemach Tzedek concludes his letter with the story that personally happened to him. When he was praying, he decided to use a very melancholic tune because it's great for meditative purposes and feel like you're connected in prayer. And he thought it was great. But his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, said, do not use that tune. Switch to something that's much more exciting and lively and happy, victorious, because we want our outcome to be a much more happier and joyous, victorious outcome than something kind of depressing. How does this work in the spiritual terms? So we will explain this to you. We see here on the screen, on the column on the right, there is wisdom, understanding, knowledge. This is based on the 10 faculties we spoke earlier. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge are the 3 cognitives. These are the 3 mental ways of us, the way we work. Our emotions are kindness, severity, compassion, triumph, humility, connection, and royalty. These are the 7 feelings that we have. When God created this world, we said before God, we are created in the image of God. So we have, God uses these 10 attributes to create the world, but we also have each one of these 10 in our soul. So through the way God created the world, we're going to learn how we are expected to function as well. Kabbalah describes that God created the world first filled with kindness. It was only kindness. And of course, it didn't work because only kindness can work. If you have kindness means that there's no punishments. There's only rewards. You're rewarding bad behavior, and you're giving people, bad people, good stuff, right? It's like funding someone's drug addiction, or not putting a thief in prison, and so on and so forth, right? So it couldn't work. So God changed the way he designed the world, and he took a little kindness and painted it into the world. And he took a mix of severity and mixed it into the world, and gave a blend of a little bit of compassion, a little of triumph, a little of humility. And with the blend, created a balance of how our world works today, right? So we all are gifted with wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And we have all the 7 emotions, but it's our choice to figure out what our balance is going to be. Am I going to be a balance of kindness and severity, or severity and kindness? How do I want to be my life, right? We have that choice. But this is the balanced world that we have to figure out. Because we're made in the image of God, we have to say, this is how God created the world. This is the same way as the way I have to function. For me to be a level-headed human being, I can't be totally filled with severity, because then nobody's going to want to be friends with me. I can't be totally kindness, because I won't be responsible of myself. So we have to have compassion to someone, but also we have to know how to be severity to a person who deserves it, right? And so on and so forth. So knowing this balance is really the key to the story. Text number 9 tells us an example that the Medrash gives us how God created this world. So the analogy the Medrash gives us, that there was a king that had an empty crystal glass, and he wanted to pour boiling hot water into this crystal glass, and he pours the boiling hot water in, and the glass shatters. King says, okay, I'm going to use freezing cold water and pour it into the crystal glass. And he takes freezing cold water and pours it into the glass, and the glass shatters. So the king says, I'm going to mix hot water and cold water and pour them together into the glass, and the glass lasted. And this is the same concept, how God created the world. If God created the world with just hot water, it can't survive, it will shatter. Just cold water, it can't survive, it will shatter. But with a blend of both emotions, that's the balanced life that God is showing us that we are supposed to have. Marilyn, you want to read for us text number 10 on page 20?
Text number 10.
Text number 10. Come and observe. One second. You got to unmute. Sorry.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, start again.
Come and observe. Our world is always ready to receive the spiritual flow that emanates from above. The upper world provides in accordance with the emotional state below in this world. If the state below is joyous, then correspondingly, abundance flows from above. But if the state below is one of sadness, then correspondingly, the flow of blessing is constricted. We therefore directed, serve God with joy, because moral joy elicits corresponding supernal joy.
This is amazing. This is from the Zohar. The Zohar is as raw as you can get to understand the Kabbalistic teachings. These are like, the Zohar is the secrets of the secrets. The Zohar is sharing with us one of the greatest secrets. If you want to see kindness, do kindness, and you will see God will give that right back to you. We create our own futures based on the way we behave, based on the way we think, the things we say, and the things we do. That is how God will treat us right back. It's interesting, as you study Torah, you'll see a lot of our concepts are built into this Zohar right here. For example, It says in the Code of Jewish Law that before we begin to pray, you should take a coin and put it into a charity box. Why do we do that? We do that because we want to show kindness before we're going to pray to God and ask God to be kind to me. I first want to do something kind. I'm opening up that channel, right? I'm doing that. We visit the sick because if we are, God forbid, sick, we want God to open those channels and provide that for us, and so on and so forth. And we see this constantly throughout Judaism, where a lot of the actions are created for us to open up those channels that we want God to give us. Back to the concept, the meditative concept of thinking positive will be positive, will create a positive result, is because our thought is actually what is going to happen. I like to think of this as we have we hold the remote control in front of the television, and we don't like what we're seeing. We just change the channel, and all of a sudden, it's a whole different information that's coming towards us. Who's controlling what information is going to be thrown at you? It's you're the remote. You're holding it, right? You change a channel, you'll get different information. It'll come sports, you'll have a cooking show, you'll have world news, whatever you want will happen. All you got to do is change the channel. And the same is true with the results that we get of our thoughts. Okay? Our thoughts are harder to change, not just with the remote control, because we're human beings, we have emotions, much more difficult. But the concept is there, that if we can change our thought, the outcome, the result, the information that's going to come back to us is also going to change. And the people around us will also change. If we're a positive person, the people around us will be positive also. That's just the way it works. And here we see the source from the Torah of how it works. Let's look at text 11, where the Baal Shem Tov describes that you are exactly what you think. Michael, you want to read for us? Text 11, page 21.
The psalmist says that one who trusts in God will be enveloped in kindness. We can infer the reverse as well. One who is constantly anxious of punishment associates themselves with strict judgment that can lead to negative consequences, God forbid. In line with the verse, their fears I will bring to them. We become attached to whatever we contemplate. If we contemplate matters associated with severity, we become attached to judgment. If we trust in God's kindness, our souls will become attached to that kindness, and we will indeed be enveloped in kindness.
Very simple. 1 + 1. Now, so we see, I'm just on the screen, we'll just go over what we just spoke about, where if we meditate positive, how do we do this? Think positive things. We will be shaping how we feel. We're going to start feeling kinder also, because we're thinking about kinder things. Not only will we change the way we feel in our heart, in our little personal life, but at the same time, we're also going to actually be creating a positive response into the universe. And this is how we see how every act that every human being does has an effect on themselves, on their surroundings, and on people everywhere. This is the Kabbalistic concept. Again, if we look throughout Judaism, we will see that there are many blessings that if we use the meditative concept we spoke in the beginning of the class of kavana, of focus, just focus on the words we're saying in prayer, we're mindful of what we're saying, we will create this positive world that we're talking about here. We'll create at least that positive space in my own life. If we wake up in the morning, we say the Moda'ani prayer, and we are grateful for God for giving us another day. Or, this is funny. I mean, not interesting, not funny. So one of my teachers, when I was studying in Toronto, is going now, he's sick, he has a tumor, he's going through chemotherapy. So he wrote an essay about the prayer of Asher Yatzar. The Asher Yatzar prayer, we pray God, we thank God for giving us healthy bowel movements. And if God forbid we can't make it, how painful that would be. So he says his whole life, he just went through the prayer and never thought twice about it. All of a sudden now, he realizes that just to be able to go to the bathroom is such a big blessing, such a big gift. We should be mindful every day when we make this blessing. There's another blessing we say before we go to sleep, that we should have a peaceful sleep. Imagine someone who can't have a peaceful sleep. A person is miserable if they can't sleep properly. Right? So if we're just mindful of these things, it will create an entire different dynamic. There's another video that we will play of Professor Leibel Wolf talking about this concept that if we're focused and cognitive of these blessings that God gives us, we will create this positive sense of positivity around us.
No matter what yesterday was all about, tomorrow is a fresh day. You're going to begin painting on a new canvas, creating a very different picture, again, one of your choice. We do that spiritually every day when we say in the morning the affirmation, Modeh Ani. And what characterizes a new day is to begin initially with gratitude, because from a posture of gratitude, you can paint a beautiful picture of the coming day. Gently close your eyes. Allow your shoulders to slump a little, feeling warm and heavy. Warm and heavy. Feeling your arms, your legs, warm and heavy, inducing the relaxation response, feeling calm, peaceful, and serene. You have much to be thankful for, and each morning express gratitude, because the gratitude that you express is able to begin the painting of a new canvas, a new creation, a new picture of the day. Modeh Ani. I thank you, Hashem, for bringing back to me this morning a freshness of soul, consciousness, and awareness. Modeh Ani. I thank you, Hashem, for providing me with the freedom to express myself today, truly. Modeh Ani. I thank you, Hashem, for allowing me to be distinctive, original, unique, so that my soul can make its unique contribution to the world. Modeh Ani. I thank you, Hashem, for changing the world every day in front of my eyes, giving me the scope to be able to play my individual role in the whole process that leads to a destiny that I am part of. Hashem, I feel indebted. I feel gratitude. Thank you, Hashem. Today will be a new day.
So this is one area we can be mindful, and we have dozens of these a day. So the takeaways that we discussed today is what can we actually practically take home. Number one, be aware and control the things that are going through your mind. Control your thought. If we can just tomorrow at a random moment, just say, hey, how did this come into my mind? What is this? Can I control it? Is it good? Is it bad? Can I put a happier thought into my mind? Another thing is we should invest in good things, putting good things in our minds, studying Torah, praying, read some of the prayer in English, understand a little bit more of what we're praying, right? Just plug we should have options. And if we're not feeling the best, we should have a good thought. We should be able to plug in and think about, make us feel happier. In order to do that, we can set daily times for positive meditations. If it's a moment before we do a prayer, if it's a moment, I know one person has this custom, they put a coin in the charity box, and when they do it, they think about something positive. It takes 10 more seconds, 20 more seconds, but it creates a feeling when you're doing that little act. So we have to carve out in our busy lives a few moments, even if it's 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, to think about something positive, and we will see a tremendous amount of change in our life, because we're, like we mentioned earlier, when we think positive, we're creating this positivity around us, and we're creating this positive result that will come back to us in different ways. I'm going to play the summary of the class, and then we will take any questions people want to ask.
Lesson 1. Do you mind? The surprising powers of Jewish meditation. 1. Meditation is an authentic Jewish practice that plays a large role in Jewish life. 2. We have control over our feelings and have the capacity to overcome negative feelings and experiences. 3. We have the ability to be in control of our thoughts and can choose what we think about at any given moment. 4. Our thinking feeds our emotions. By getting rid of negative thoughts, we cut off negative feelings. 5. Meditating on positive thoughts develops a positive mindset and positive emotions. 6. Positive meditation actually impacts the world around us and elicits a positive response from God, which shapes reality for the good.
All right. There we go. Stop recording.